Kia ora everybody and welcome to the Good Day Matrix. My name is Daz and I have the privilege to be sitting here at the University of Waikato with Heather Connolly, Dr. Heather Connolly. Heather is a mother of two beautiful, beautiful humans. And I met her when she enrolled her daughter Jamie. I think Jamie was 3 when she started at our childcare centre. I was managing a childcare centre in Hamilton, and that daughter is now 11 years old, which just absolutely blows my mind. Heather is the Director of Engagement and Executive Education at the University of Waikato. She has a PhD, a postgraduate diploma in Strategic Management with distinction, a postgraduate certificate in tertiary teaching, and a Bachelor of Management Studies with honours. She has spoken at events all around the world and co-authored a book called Addicted to Performance. And in a side note, she's also an amazing performer herself. So I can't wait to hear more about what she's been up to. But thank you so much for your time today, Heather. We're very, very grateful.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. And I am quite humbled to be here. So, yes.
Thank you. When we caught up, we talked to you about the 5 pillars that we work through with wellness of body, mind, identity, community and environment. So we'll just flow through those today and sort of learn what your experiences have been and what you've tried in each of those spaces. So the first one, normally we talk about people's rituals and routines with body, but for you, something happened a year ago that I'm really keen to share with other people so that they can start paying attention to their bodies. So tell us about what happened.
Yeah, I'm happy to share because to me it's really important to be able to be aware of what goes on as we get older and what happens to our bodies, especially as women. So I must admit, if we go back about 2 years ago, I was just not feeling the best. I was running lots, I was really fit, but I just wasn't feeling the best. And I just knew something was out of balance in my body. And it took a while and a bit of, I shouldn't say arguing, but a bit of quite strong conversation with the doctors to say something's not right here. And eventually I found out that I had an issue with my thyroid, which a lot of women who are in their 40s onwards have thyroid issues. But mine wasn't an underactive thyroid, which many women get. Mine was an overactive thyroid. And that meant that I just felt like I was just constantly on the go and I couldn't stop. And I'm an active person, but I just could not stop. And so eventually, doctors took it seriously, did some blood tests and said, well, you've got an overactive thyroid, but there's not much we can do about it except for give you some drugs. Not really a drug person myself, so I was always like, oh, let's just give it another 3 months, do some more blood tests and see what happens. And eventually, as COVID hit, because a lot of things happen when COVID hits, eventually got myself in to see a specialist at the hospital. And I just thought I had an overactive thyroid. As soon as I took the drugs, then it got even worse. So everything turned to custard. So I was like, well, I don't need the drugs, but I do need the drugs. And part of the whole process was actually learning to really listen to what your body was telling you. So went on the drugs, and after 3 months I said, look, this isn't good. I said, I feel like I'm swapping between being hyperactive, which meant that they were giving me drugs to slow down it, to being really underactive, which is what happened. So I took half the drugs, as you do, thinking I'll try that happy medium in the middle somewhere. But eventually, once I finally got to see the specialist and finally got through the process, I found out that I actually had a lump on my thyroid. So he sort of gave the options of, well, you can't stay on these drugs for life because being hyperactive, if you stay on the drugs, it can actually lead to heart disease, it can lead to brittle bones, there's a number of negative things. So you can either, you've got to have it out, or you've actually got to take an iodine to try and, a radioactive iodine, which I didn't want to put in my body. So it was quite a difficult decision, but the decision was actually, hey, it's got to come out. So they got half of my thyroid removed. And it was a really scary process, which sort of links to probably some of the stuff you're going to ask me about later on. And I suppose the scariest thing was when they're taking out half your thyroid, there's a lot of stuff that is close to it that could potentially be impacted because of it. And one of them is your vocal cords. And one of the risks is that you may not ever have your voice back the way that you had it beforehand. So that was quite a fear of mine going into the operation. There is the fear of the scar and how that will be. And I know from when I was a child, I had a number of moles removed and I scar quite badly. There was a fear that you might not wake up. You get older and you've got kids, like you said. There's always that fear that you won't necessarily wake up, and what have you left behind and what have you missed out on? So a lot of fear and anxiety around going and getting it done. But oh my goodness, waking up after the operation, going home the following day, recognising I still had a voice. I think my family was quite happy. I had a croaky voice for about 2 weeks. But recognising that actually putting your trust in the specialists. And since then, I've been very, very lucky. I was told that the operation had a certain success rate, but it might not be successful. And we're now close to 18 months down the track from that operation. And it's been successful to date that I don't need to take any drugs, which has been really good. But part of that is not being complacent. Part of that is still being aware of what's happening with your body. So we've had horrible weather for the last few weeks. I've been excessively busy and my normal running routine has probably taken a bit of a dive. And because of that, I'm really conscious that my fitness regime fits with my wellness of my body regime. And as part of that, I know that I can't be complacent, because if I become complacent, the rest of the body might start recognizing that complacency. And then all of a sudden, when I go to do my bloods next time, they might not necessarily be where I want them to be. So actually the whole thing and the whole wellness is really important to be able to make sure that I can stay off the drugs for as long as possible. Now, it's not a negative thing, because there's a lot of women out there, and I give a lot of women credit, that have had thyroid problems for a very, very long time. And some people don't have the opportunity of being able to have their thyroid removed. A lot of people who've got underactive thyroids, we're trying to get their thyroids to work for them to be able to keep us balanced. But actually a real learning for me is the fact that actually trust the doctors around us. Push when you think something's not right, because you start with your GP and your GP's not the specialist. And for you knowing what's right with your body and what is not right, that's really critical and really important. So being able to push, being able to recognise that you own your body, it's your body. Yes, we get old. Yes, our bones creak. Yes, everything hurts. And you know what? I can go for a run, but it's quite painful afterwards sometimes, because I'm not the 20-year-old I used to be. But being really conscious that this is the only body we've been given, and we really have to listen to it. And that's really important. But yeah, if you think something's not right, go and really push to make sure you're getting the treatment and you're getting those that are experts in that area come back to you, and then trust them. Trust that they will actually have got you on their side. They want to help you get better. And understand that fear's okay. Fear is okay. So I have gone through quite a bit with the body. I think moving forward and getting older, there'll be other stuff that comes up. But you've just got to listen to it.
Yeah. In fear, like that could be an hour of our conversation anyway, but it's feeling fear and knowing fear is okay, as long as you still take that even tiny step forward, find out a little bit more or go and see the next person. But that courage that, the fear's not going to go away, but it's how you manage yourself through that, because a lot of women's health issues comes down to that they were frightened for too long because they don't want to go anywhere, when none of us want to go anywhere. And so we ignore it until it's to a point where if we had gone and got some help sooner, we could have had some different outcomes. So
exactly,
a very key message.
And there's so many women that I've met in the last 10 years who have ended up with cancer. And it's all come down to the fact that I'll just ignore it or go away. And luckily all those women are with us today, but actually, no, don't ignore it. Recognise that, you know what, there's a lot of women around the world who are going through exactly the same, and you've got to work through that fear. You've got to work through it. You've got to keep on pushing, because there is definitely the ability to really tap into getting it fixed. And I think we're always seeing fear in our lives, but we've just got to work through it, because there's a greater good, and that's the kids we've got, that's the family, that's the people around us, and we're doing it for them. So yeah.
So now we'll move into mind, and people are facing stress in their lives, I feel, more than ever at the moment with everything that's happened in the last few years. And we're coping with it in different ways and forms, and often not sometimes in the best ways, but we need to find outlets for it, and we need to find places to release, but also to recover. So talk us through some of your coping mechanisms for stress, because you work in a very busy role and you've got children and lots of things going on. So what do you do for yourself what are your coping mechanisms?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and sometimes I think we can all say we don't think we cope particularly well. Running, I talked about running before, so that is my my personal time. I don't go out with headphones on, I don't listen to music, I just run. And I must admit, some of the best running that I've done is when it's just been by myself, and I've just gone out and I've gone, oh yeah, I'll be gone for half an hour, and I might be gone for an hour and a half. And that's not that I'm a wonderful long distance runner, it's just that time out is just a chance to breathe in the air, to really spend time just reflecting on what's around you. The person driving the car, they've got a smile on their face. They don't have a smile on their face as they've gone past you. The farmer out in the paddock, if you get far enough out of Hamilton, the person who's running past you as you run past on a street that happens to smile. To me, that's a real good stress relief for me. Often I'll go out with a girlfriend, and great stress relief is just allowing her to talk through and get all the crap off her shoulders. And that's actually really a great way of dealing with it as well, because then you realise it's not just you. Actually, everyone around us is really under the pump at the moment, trying to juggle so much with the environment, with the lack of knowing what the future holds. I think an element of the stress is the fact that in the past, prior to COVID, we could plan. We could plan for that holiday. We could plan for going overseas. We could plan for going camping. We could plan for school camps. We could plan for work. And our ability to plan and control our future just disappeared. And there was this constant uncertainty, and that's really raised the level of stress and anxiety. So for me, running. The other one, which sounds a bit crazy, but it's my little crazy moment, is actually the theatre. The theatre is something which I grew up with when I was very young. So about the age of my daughter at 11 was the first time I was ever on stage. And it was something I loved doing, and I sort of started with The Sound of Music, and it's really quite interesting because The Sound of Music was actually on, was reading this morning, there was something on Julie Andrews. And the fact that she was actually recognised for her amazing work in that, and they had all of the children from The Sound of Music that are still alive come back and actually sing to her, which was wonderful. But The Sound of Music was my big break. It was a big break. I was a kid. I had about 4 lines. But it really started that passion for the theatre, and that went the whole way through my years when I was studying at university at undergraduate. That was my outlet. I stopped when I went overseas, and then when I came back in my 30s, I got involved again. Then I had my children, so I stopped. And then there was a few sporadical things, but actually the last year has been a year of being able to do something that you can immerse yourself in with other people who are just really passionate about it as well. And it's an outlet. It's an outlet. And I've been very lucky that in the last year I've been involved with 2 productions locally, and both of them were very different character roles. One was comedy, fun, a big laugh, and that was probably really good timing. Quite a large cast of young people coming through, but a couple of us that have been around for a while, and we just had a blast, absolute laugh. And you'd go home with a smile on your face, because whatever you did, being comedy, you just had lots of fun. And it was also lovely to meet some other people that were just maybe possibly starting their life and supporting them. And we were a real support mechanism. During that particular show, we got right to the week before you open, and we went back into lockdown again. That was when we hit that lockdown. And that could, from a stress, from a mind perspective, could really tunnel you down into a dark place. But actually the collective rose above that, and we talked on social media, we Zoomed on social media, and we kept everybody alive. And even though we knew that the show wasn't going to go on because of lockdown, we kept on hoping that we might get one show in right at the end, because we were going to have a 3-week season. We were hoping right at the end, it doesn't matter if we only just get one show in, we can all get back together. And that kept everybody, the stress levels, it kept us something to live for. It was that hope that there was something in the future. There was the ability to, well, we can't plan, but we're still planning we're going to be able to do the show. It didn't happen. It didn't happen last year. It didn't happen until the beginning of this year. So we got back on stage for 2 weeks this year. But it was, the theatre is an outlet. The theatre is an outlet for that stress. You're doing it for yourself, but you're actually doing it for the others that you work with, both on stage and off stage. But you're doing it for the smile you put on the faces of the audience. And that's that element of theatre that so many people don't actually get. We're actually, yes, we are doing it a little bit for ourselves as a way to escape from the current challenges we've got, the current juggling you've got as a mum. But you're doing it for those people around you. You're part of that team putting on that show, both on stage and off stage. But you're actually doing it for the people that pay the money to come. And if they've enjoyed it, if you see a smile on their face, then it's worth all of the wait. It's worth all of that time that you put into it. So for me, that mind thing, the theatre is my ability to escape. And as I said, I've had the luxury of doing 2 shows this year, and we're only in June, and I'm not doing any more. That's my big take.
Famous last words.
Famous last words. No more this year. No more for a while, because actually, from a mind perspective, to try and cope with the stress, you can actually, when your children are doing things like that, you're investing in them, and that's exactly the same. You're part of their team, helping them do something that puts a smile on someone's face. So I think you can revert it away from you personally doing it to actually getting just as much enjoyment out of involving yourself with others and supporting them to do it.
Yeah, and the smiles on your children's faces too, right?
Definitely,
you know,
so.
They've just crushed a solo guitar, whatever, like it's the...
I mean, and you think about that. I mean, I had a really cool opportunity came up for my son recently, where there was a student here at the university doing their masters had written a soundtrack to a 4-minute movie, and radical, really cool soundtrack. And he was looking for a guitarist, and my son's guitar teacher had said, "Oh, why don't you do this?" And so we sat down and helped him through it. And yes, he said he would do it. And this cool guy came to our house and helped him out, and then they finally got to record it. And the smile on my son's face when he got to sit in a room with a pile of people like older than him that do this for a living, and it was so cool, and the music was great, and I actually can't wait to hear the music and the soundtrack when this really short little 4-minute film comes out. Because you're right, I had a really stressful day that day, but going into and seeing them all record in this little room was just so exciting. And it just, you do it for those reasons.
Yeah. And another thing too is we have special people in our lives, right? So who is somebody that is sort of your support person, or people or groups that you sort of lean on in those moments of stress, who've got your back and know what you need to help you get through it? Yeah,
that's a really good question. So I think there's a couple. I think you've got to have a really solid family environment that realises stress is okay. Actually, you can say I'm stressed. And I think at home you have those days where the kids are rambling at you and you're like, I don't need this. I think to be able to say, I'm stressed, I've had a bad day at work, can you just give me 5 minutes before we have this conversation, please? So I think home's really important. I think you can't hide your stressful days from your home environment. You just have to have that open conversation. And you know what? As long as and if something just boils over and it all comes out, because we're all human and it does, to then be able to walk away and come back and say, I'm really sorry. I just had a moment and it was a really bad day. And I think that's really important. Or I want to take the dog for a walk because I just need to get out for 10 minutes. So I think home. I've got a lot of time for my immediate family, and I often find after a stressful day, and modern cars are great, I just often will phone up my dad and just say, hey Dad, how's your day been? What have your mum and been up to? Blah, blah, blah. By the way, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And I think that's a really good outlet, having somebody who can just listen. Because then by the time you get home, you've got rid of your frustrations to a completely independent party, and you can walk into the next world and you can be that mum at home. You can ask the children how their day have been. But the other one is a more personal one. I have a coach. So I've had somebody who's been a leadership coach for me, a wonderful lady up in Auckland, and we meet sporadically, but she's a real inspiration because she remembers where we left off, what I was planning to work through, and we always pick up on that, and she just listens really well and points me and gives me little tips in right direction. So I think no matter who you are in life, having those sorts of outlets, the family understands, you've got an outlet before you get home, and then you've got somebody who's part of your lifelong leadership journey and can coach you through how to deal with some of those things, can say, hey, I read this really cool book. Yeah. I reckon you'd really get some time out of listening to it. Or I listened to a great podcast. Yeah. Somebody who can bounce those things off you that fill your glass up as the world has been vaporizing the water in it.
Yeah, it's so true. And they're totally like, there's no emotion for those, like for the coach who's, they can just hear what's going on and not be invested to be like, well, I'm going to go give them what for.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what my dad do. Well, what do you need? Because that's not okay. She's treating you that way. It's pretty magic.
Precisely. I mean, and the great thing about Dad and saying that is he's not even in the same town as me. So I can have a real good blur. Oh, then I can be like, I'm sorry, the phone's cutting out.
Oh, I love that. Shout out to our dads. My dad does the same. So we'll move on to identity, and we find it's real. I mean, all of these pillars interlink with each other, but something that's really important is knowing who you are and where you've come from. And it gives you that really resilient base to come back to understand why you make decisions, and how you feel in situations can often be something that's happened in your life, and that's where that comes from. So tell us about where you hail from and where your whānau are and how you've come to here.
Well, we are a real close-knit family. I think that's a real key important thing. So my mum is from England, so she jumped on a ship when she was in her early 20s to come and visit my auntie, who was living in New Zealand at the time. And for Mum, that was her way to escape the life that she had grown up in. And she had grown up in council housing in a small little place called Bury, which was on the outskirts of Manchester in England. So Mum, it was her chance to escape. My granddad was a gardener for the rich people, so it was very much the Downton Abbeys of this world for my grandparents. So Mum, it was the big wide world was open to her when she came to New Zealand for a holiday, and she met my father, and we actually didn't go back to England until about 10 years after she'd been here. And we were very lucky as a family that we got to go back over to England for 3 years when my father was doing his PhD out of Edinburgh University. So I met my dad. I'm the eldest in my family, and I've got a younger sister and a younger brother. So as I said, we're really, really close. But for us, every decision my parents made was for the greater good of the unit. And that's a value that has stuck with me for basically all of my life, or 50 years of my life. We did it as a family. We argued as a family. We celebrated as a family. But everything we did was about those roots and those values of family. So very, very important to me in terms of who we are. As 3 children, we have grown up and done our own things. We've got our own families now. So I left university, then I went to Australia. I was actually working with my father at the time. We were running a consultancy business. When I left university, I had the chance to go and work for a big organisation in a graduate recruitment program. But actually, to me, family values were more important. And that probably was a real key decision point in my life. And sometimes I go back and say, oh, what if I'd done this? What if I'd done that? But actually, no. I am who I am because of the decision I made then, which was to go and work for the family. And that has meant that I'm no superstar. I've got no distinguished awards or all of that, but actually it doesn't matter because my family's still here and we're still as close as the day that I decided I was going to go and work for the family. So I went to Australia and did that. My sister finished her degree and she came to work for the family business as well. My brother didn't, and good on him. He finished his degree here and then he went overseas. Interestingly, when he went overseas, he still came to visit me in Australia and he still came back home. So we're still very, very close. Now add, for all of us, family, our own families on top of that. My sister is currently in the US with her husband. They went and did a 3-year sabbatical over there for his work. But our kids are really close. I wish we had the sort of modern technology that our children have today, because I'll often wander up the corridor and there's my 14-year-old discussing drones with his 14-year-old cousin in America, and they can go on for hours on our Wi-Fi, I might admit, and we're paying for the Wi-Fi. But you know, that's really cool because that tie I never had with my cousins because we were worlds apart. My cousins on my mum's side we're close to, but my cousins on my father's side probably not as much, and that came down to the family values. The family values are so strong on my mum's side of it. So yes, so my sister's in America. She's coming back for a holiday in about 3 weeks, which is great, and we've all organised to come together. So really, again, that identity related to family. My brother moved, he was up in Auckland when he settled with his family. They moved back to England. They travelled the world for 6 months as a family unit before they went back to England. Again, really showing that their identity is who they are as a family. They then surprised, due to COVID, my parents just over a year ago and knocked on the door on Mother's Day and back across in the Bay of Plenty, and my mum had no idea. She thought she was talking to them on the phone because it was my niece's birthday, so she was wishing them happy birthday. And I can just imagine what she would have said. Oh, get the people away from the door, I'm busy on the phone. And there was my brother standing with the family, and they'd come home and they'd gone through isolation. So they're now back across in the Bay as well. So again, really lovely to have us. My sister is coming home, but she will be home next year, having all those family ties. So for us, family is absolutely critical, and that's who our identity is. We're a mixed lot. My husband, who I met through the theatre, so that's a bit of a tie back to the previous thing. His family is all in Hamilton, so they have probably not had the same global sort of experience that my family's got. But that's who we are. We are a family that loves where we live. We love being able to get together. We love being able to have Christmas holidays. Often it's usually in a tent somewhere. But hey, that's always lots of fun. And we're very lucky that the cousins, so my children and their cousins, they're very close in age. And that's been really cool because hopefully our values will flow through to their values, and they will all be about family and bringing everybody together as well.
So we'll move to community, and when we caught up a while ago, you spoke about how important the small touch points are within the communities that you're a part of. So tell us about those communities and tell us about what really happened, and COVID was one of those moments we've already discussed, but yeah, share with us about those communities and those little moments that really matter massively.
So I've talked a lot about, I suppose you could say, the theatre community. So let's flick across to the other moments that matter, which are, I'm in a work community here, and there's lots of stuff that happens with work. I mean, there's lots of business as usual that goes on. But to me, the exciting moments are where something magical happens, and those sorts of touch points where you can go, wow, I really helped that person, and then you might not see them for ages, and they sort of flick back and they give that back, as that they give that, you've helped them do something and then they help back. Those sorts of touch points in the community are really important. So I do see, to me, the business community, and I call them the MBA community as well, as a second community, are those students or participants. They're not really students, they're participants in their journey of learning. But it's when I touch point with them that's really quite critical. It's, well, what have you been doing? What's been going on in your life? Or the person that goes, oh, by the way, I just got this great job and it was because of my MBA. And you sit there and you go, wow, I helped somebody and I helped them, and now they're helping other people. And to me, I'd love to be able to map all of those touch points that all those people that you've come across in your life have gone on their journeys, just to know where they've got to and how they made decisions, and how maybe one small thing happened and they went, wow, I'm taking that with me. The same way you might have something happen to you and you go, wow, I'm taking that with me. There was one gentleman who's still here part-time, and I did a paper with him, easily 20 years ago now, and I just really respected the approach he took to engaging with students. And he was one of those ones I went, you're just so quiet and you're so calm, and you've got this mana that comes with who you are. And it was like, great, I want to take that with me. And I really hope that there's been, and I know there has been with the students or the participants that I've worked with over the years, that there's been that point where they go, you understood the journey I was going on. You had that future vision of what I can do, and now they can run with it. So that to me is a really important community. And I must admit, we're not always that good at keeping a contact with that community of past MBA students or past students. But you know that it often will just come back, and it will just often come back at that time where you want it the most. I had a student who, when I was teaching on the BMS Honours program that we've got a number of years ago, I had a couple of students who were tutors. So they were like senior ones, and really great, got to know them really, really well. And one of them has gone and lived overseas. It's been in London for a number of years. And when we took a group of our MBA students over there about 4 years ago, I reached out and said, hey, would you be wanting to come back and give these guys a bit of a chinwag about what you've been doing in the space of sustainability? It was like, yeah, great, love to. And went back the following year. He was really great, did the same thing again. He's now come back to New Zealand and living in the South Island. And a great little email that says, do you want to catch up for a coffee? And it's like, I'd love to catch up with a coffee when you're up in Hamilton next. Those are the people that make your community. You don't necessarily see them every day, but when they do touch base with you, you go, wow, I'm going to know you forever. And we're going to, it might be another 10 years time before we touch base again, but we can touch base, and just that meaningful conversation. Where are you up to in your career at the moment? What are you doing? Is there anything I can do to support you? Those are the sorts of things which are important with community.
Yeah, 100%. And it's the same with friendships too, right? You may not see your friend for 10 years. And then it's like you haven't spent a minute apart. It's really important. And
I think what's really important with those particular things is the fact that when you've built up the mutual respect for each other, and I think that's a thing which you gain over time. I mean, I've got people I went to school with who are still based here in the Waikato, and we've all got our own careers, we've all got our own children, we've all got our own paths that we've taken, but that mutual respect for the skill set and the career path they've gone down, you know that you can reach out if you need them. You can reach out and say, hey, I need some help here, or do you know somebody? And to me, the biggest takeaway I would tell anybody who's in their 20s now is your biggest success will be those that you wrap around you and those that you give to, and you give selflessly to. You provide them with the ability to be able to support them in what they're doing. That will come back. That's your network that will be with you forever. And you might not see them for 10, 20 years. But actually when it comes back, you've got that mutual trust and respect.
So with environment, we talk about that in lots of different senses. It can be sustainability, home, work, physical, outside, inside, and all kinds of things. But what I'd really like to talk with you about is how you observe people in different contextual, particularly within organisations, situations, and how people act in different environments and how that's actually creating an environment around themselves and what that's producing for the staff, for the people, for the performers, for the students and everyone around them.
Yep, no, that's again a really great question, and one where I think just spending time reflecting and watching behaviours. I mean, to me, the environment around us is about people's behaviours, and it's about seeing why they're doing what they're doing. And often in an environment we'll say, oh, well, we don't like that behaviour, and therefore we will then put aside with that, well, we don't like how that person acts, or we don't like that person as a leader. And we're putting it on the person without that reflection as to what's the context around why they're doing what they're doing in their environment. And to me, a big thing, and it sort of comes from my real passion to enable others to make a difference in the world, to create the future leaders who will do things differently, comes back to the environment. And it comes back to when you see somebody who's very micromanaging, very lacks trust in their staff, and I'm not necessarily saying in my environment, but when you visually see these sorts of things going on, wants to know everything that's going on, you sit there and you've got to reflect and say, why is that happening? And when I was out consulting in business, I'd see that happen a lot. You'd see the same mistakes happening year after year in an organisation because management and senior management were just doing what they've been trained to do. So if you think about it, if we go back when I was working in Australia, you'd be going in these organisations, people had worked in there for 30 years. So when they were further down the pecking order, they were then micromanaged by their manager. So when they moved into a management role, that was the only management style they actually knew. They moved into a senior leadership role, that's the only style that they knew. So all of a sudden, the new generation with the new ideas at the bottom weren't sharing any of that stuff, and neither was any of it actually getting to the top, which would have actually made an impact and done things differently because of the behaviours that are ingrained in the way that organisations were working at the time. Now let's fast forward 20 years. I think we're at a point in time where we've recognised new innovation. We've recognised the value and the voice of everybody. Not every organisation, but we're starting to see that come through. Now, where I see really cool behaviours is not necessarily the whole organisation being radical, but actually where you do see pockets. And you see pockets where the leader or the leader of that team might be micromanaged by their boss above, but actually themselves are not using that behaviour on their staff. They're actually creating that ceiling in many senses, protecting them for what's happening above, but allowing them to thrive, providing them with modelling the behaviour they want them to have, which is come up with great ideas, be willing to fail, be willing to make a mistake. No idea is a silly idea on the table. Let's bring everything in. Let's be completely inclusive. That's the sort of environment that I think we need to see more of. That's the sort of environment where actually we need to celebrate because that's the environment that the next generation wants. And we're in I personally feel we're in a transition stage. We're trying to teach a lot of those senior managers about leadership, but actually it's very hard to change behaviours that you've actually grown up with. And it gets back to the values in the family. You embed that stuff from day one and you have it the whole way through. You embed that actually your role is to do this and this only. That's all you're ever going to get. But if you actually embed it's about bringing new ideas to the table. I see it as white space, and we've got lots and lots of white space, but if our dark space takes over the white space, then all we're ever going to see is dark space. Yeah. We need to give people the ability to have freedom to do things within that white space. Yeah. And it won't always be right, but that's the cool thing about it. It's actually about giving them that. Otherwise, if you're always shot down, are you ever going to come up with that idea? No, you're not, because in the back of your mind you're going, I'm just going to be shut down, so why bother doing it?
Yeah. And it's where the greatest learning happens.
Yeah.
When you are pushed out of your comfort zone, and yeah, it might be a mistake, or it may not have landed how you thought it was going to land, but the learning that comes from that, instead of just being told, this will work, make sure you stay within these parameters, and this is how we've always done it. So
yeah. And I think other things, thinking about it, when you're thinking about that environment, you may be the person who is accountable the most as the team leader, because you've got to report what's going on. But it's about those around you, and it's about recognising the talent of everybody. It's about having a bit of emotional intelligence and empathy, so actually knowing that everybody comes being a person. They are a whole person. They bring something to it. It's about all for one and one for all. Really simple saying, but actually we're all for the one person to support them, and we're one for the all of everybody that's there. And the fact that you're a member, and as a member you contribute. You're not a silent partner sitting aside. So if we think about team, we think about we all bring talent to it. We all bring empathy and emotional intelligence. We're all for one and one for all, and we're members. And I think that's, to me, is really important of environments. If you start modelling that, you're going to get two things. You're either going to get someone going, how come they are having so much fun? I want to do what they're doing. How does your team seem to achieve everything and you're really stressed, but you're not stressed and you're having fun? Or you're going to get the opposite with somebody saying, we don't want that behaviour. And if they don't want that behaviour, do you really want to work in that organisation? Because we should be modelling that types of behaviour.
Yeah. I'm going to throw you a sidebar here because I'm intrigued. So in environments, you often have your loud voices and you have your ones who'll just sit back and just go, oh, well, she's not listening to me anyway. How do we help the quiet voices to be heard? So what are some things that they could put in place, or who should they talk to, or what's some advice you could give to someone who's sitting around a table with those same voices who have the ideas, or same voices who are overpowering conversations when this person needs to be heard but they're not getting sort of the turn as such? How do they do that for themselves?
I think we're seeing a lot more now techniques coming into organisations that help them do that. So I was sitting in a session yesterday which was using a design thinking methodology. We were all on Zoom because we were in different places and some people had COVID, but we were using post-it notes, and the post-it notes were everyone's aspect was important, but you could put that up there without feeling, if you're a quiet person, you could have your voice there without feeling you had to argue with the person who had the louder voice. But then what we also did to ensure that the quiet voice was heard is everybody had to choose 3 of their ideas and say, I'm batting these ideas for this particular reason. What was really interesting on that session yesterday was the fact that some of the quiet voices were the best ideas. They weren't the same ideas, they weren't the group think of everybody else. So I think, to answer your question, utilising some of these modern different ways of doing things. So maybe it is, prior to coming to the meeting, we want 4 ideas from everybody that are already documented and brought to the table. Then those ideas can be put into a poll. Then it's like, oh, what about this one? Whose idea was this? Oh, it was your idea. Explain a little bit more about it. I think also we need really good facilitators of meetings. That's not necessarily the boss. So the boss often has their own ideas, but it's a little bit like sitting back, not being involved with the creation, actually being the party whose job it is to facilitate the voices and the creation. And if we go back to one of my hats I wear, and I've had the honour of doing this for a number of years, is heading up the judging for the business awards, the Waikato Chamber Business Awards. And I was a judge for a number of years, so I've done the hard yards, but actually as the facilitating the judging process, I don't go to visit any businesses. So when we're sitting in a room having a very detailed conversation about the organisations that have been visited, it's about facilitating your voice over your voice. And actually both voices are important because you may have visited that organisation and viewed it from a different lens. And I think we need to see more facilitators in meetings that have not got an agenda. Their agenda is just there to make sure that every voice is heard and be able to have the skill set to be able to say, so what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Oh, and why is that the case? And where are you bringing that evidence from? Actually, no. We're still on this particular point here because it's quite important.
Yeah.
That is a skill that we should be teaching. But I think we also, everybody that comes to a meeting doesn't have to be able to do everything.
No.
So I think actually having those facilitators in meetings whose job it is to keep us on track with time, make sure we cover everything in the agenda, and make sure that every voice has a chance to be heard.
It's powerful. Thank you.
It's okay.
I love throwing aside that. So we're going to move into our last section today, and it's a new section.
Oh.
You're my first person doing this new section, and we're calling it Portion Distortion, which is Sasha Coburn. This is a call out to you because you taught me portion distortion years ago. So, and with portion distortion, it feels like it doesn't matter what stage of life we're at, and it could be in our early stages, our mid, and everywhere in between. We all have these same issues around time and how we use our time and the lack of time. And so what sort of struggles or barriers have you faced with time over the years, and how have you overcome those?
Yep. Okay, yes, we don't have enough time. And I think and when your kids are at certain times of their life, you have more time than others. But I think we're just time poor. We are time poor. So to me, the biggest thing for managing time is having a really good calendar, and that's your go-to. And I think looking at it every single morning when you get up and saying, this is what we've got to get through, and looking at it every single evening before you shut down going, and this is what I've actually achieved, and this is what's happening tomorrow. So I think there is that element of, I've got to do all of this, this was on the list time-wise, and actually reflecting on what did I achieve, and you might not necessarily get to everything, but actually still having that time to be able to say, well, we did tick off A, B, C, and D, that's great. What's tomorrow actually holding for me? So I think that to me is a technique that I use every day. First thing I look at is the calendar. Last thing I look at is the calendar. Give myself a bit of a pat on the back saying, did achieve a few of those things. Didn't necessarily get to all of them, but what does tomorrow hold? And that is a sort of thing where, again, it gets down to you start getting up in the morning, talking to the kids going, so what have you got today? You've got X, Y, and Z. They then start learning the importance of them owning a lot of their activities. So yes, of course, when they're 5 or 6, you've got to make their lunch for them. You've got to make sure they've got everything in their school bag. But when they're hitting that 11, 14, actually, if you stuff it up, I ain't there to dig you out of it. You actually have got to recognise that we will get you to your event, but you're in charge of all the things that are required for that event. Otherwise, as a mum, you could end up doing all that stuff as well. Now, you know in the back of your mind that if you're going to a hockey game and the child's in the car, the hockey stick isn't, there might be a question before you actually go out the door that says, have you got everything you need? Would you like to check? But and it's a brilliant one, because I remember a number of must have been about a year ago, got the phone call from the husband. Oh, by the way, we've got to the gig, we've got 2 guitars, we've got a music stand, we've got the amp, we just don't have the music. Well, the music would be a helpful one. Yes, I'll turn up to the rescue, mum. But actually, they then know it's their responsibility. So I think from a time management perspective as a parent, how do you do it? You've got to get others to understand their accountability for what you're actually doing. So when it goes to getting to ballet classes, I don't check the bag. If you're getting there with no ballet shoes, you're doing it in bare feet. You've got to be a little bit hard at times. When it gets to juggling, I think it's really important to be able to be honest with people. So often you've got that email that you've put off and put off and put off, and you've gone, oh, I really should be doing that. I haven't responded to that person. The most honest thing to actually do is to flick them in an email and say, I have been swamped. I haven't forgotten about you. Do apologise. I will do this tomorrow. And then that becomes the top of your priority list tomorrow. And that's the one you've got to get done. I think often from a time perspective, we try and do the easy stuff first. Actually, coming in the morning, and I will often come in early in the morning, and the morning is to plan the day, read the stuff that I need to get done and say what's going to get pushed aside, what's not important. And then if I do get to it, that's a great big tick. I think also with the change to the way that we work now, the change to the fact that we can work from home, I think you've got to be really strong with yourself. And if you can, is to be able to say, I'm working from home. Or I've come in for the morning, I'm going to go work from home in the afternoon. Because you don't get disruptions, people coming and knocking on the door. You don't get that offer for, oh, come for a cup of tea. And then you go, well, that's half an hour I've gone that I won't get back. But when you're at home, you can still have that cup of tea. You get more done, but you also get all those other little things that would bug you done, like putting the washing in the dryer, actually letting the dog out, bringing in the mail. Actually, oh, I might just do this. It's not that you're not getting your work done, but your 5 minutes or your half an hour having a cup of tea is more productive. And so to me, managing those time things is deciding what do I need to do to be productive and what can I put aside because it's not being productive at the moment. It's also deciding what to say no to. There's a lot of things that you want to do, but it's actually saying, I would love to do this, but no. But this time round, I have to say no. And again, classic example was Saturday night, sat down, phone went. And I went, oh, who's phoning me on a Saturday night? Just poured the glass of wine, pouring down with rain. So happy to be sitting at home. Thought I'll find a movie that the kids are not going to argue over because, 11-year-old girl, 14-year-old, almost 15-year-old boy, different movies. Phone rang. And someone from the music industry had said, oh, would you guys possibly, I've had the band from Auckland cancel on me, any chance you could get here? And I was like, I would love to do that. I really would love to. It would be a night out. We probably would have sounded shocking because we haven't done it for ages. But actually, no. No, I'm really sorry. But actually, this is our special time. We've already got the glass of wine poured. We've already got the movie chosen. This is actually where you've got to say no. And I think we need to bring that into work a lot more often as well and say, I love your idea, I fully support you, but no, I can't actually be involved in the doing of it. Or, love your idea, fully support it, you can only have an hour of my time every 2 weeks. I will give you an hour of my time every 2 weeks and I will honour that, but don't ask me to do more than that because actually it will take me away from doing the other things that I've got to do to ensure that I'm meeting the remit of why I'm here. So
which leads us beautifully into my last question of the day. So you love performing, obviously, and you have children who are doing a lot of amazing things. So how do you make time for the things that bring you joy? Because a few of those things you've said you'd love to do, but you have to say no. And that's also protecting like another joyful space of quiet time with family. So how do you make those decisions? And then how do you make sure you are doing those things that bring you joy on top of doing things with the kids, being at work, supporting your husband obviously with the things that he's doing? How do you ensure that joy is part of how you make your decisions?
You wouldn't do it if you didn't enjoy it. And I think that's a big thing. So joy for me is seeing the children succeed. That's a massive element of joy. So so making a decision to say, yes, the kids can do that. That is joyous. That's also quite hard at times because to see them succeed and do well, we all know success requires effort, and often you're trying to impart to them the importance of persistence and effort, and the result of that is you actually will do something really well, and therefore you'll enjoy it and everyone around you will enjoy it. And I'm enjoying the fact that you're enjoying it, but it's been a journey to get there. So to me, how do I balance those things? Recognise that joy can be really small. It doesn't have to be. If you think about the theatre one I talked about right at the beginning, is to see the smile on the faces of those people that have been transformed out of their current challenging world that they're in, to see something different for 2 or 3 hours and clap at the end and the smile on their faces. That is something that you can see. You can really see. Just as important as that is the thing that often you don't see, which is somebody just having a smile on their face. You've got a smile on your face right now. That to me is joyous because something's happened that you've gone, wow, something really small, and that's all it requires. So making a decision, realising you don't have to have all those big things, but you've got to be able to balance them all out. You know, one big thing a year is really joyous. One big thing every couple of years is really joyous, but it's the little small things which actually fill the cup up more than that one big thing. We took the kids, we were very lucky with my sister being in America that we took our kids to across for 5 weeks holiday. The bill was astronomical. We paid it off for a couple of years, but actually the joy was the fact that we provided them opportunities to see things that they didn't see in New Zealand. They would love to do it again, and I would just say, great, you can do it when you're an adult and you can afford to do it yourself.
Start saving.
But start saving now, it's going to cost you a lot. But the joy was seeing them doing something that they'd never done before. So skiing 7.5 kilometres down a mountain through trees, being able to, and recognise that mum was the worst skier of all of us, that was joyous. Seeing the child who didn't want to go the first day on the roller coaster upside down, them being the child on day 3 who didn't want to go on any other roller coaster. Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then seeing mum's photograph and then laughing at mum, because in the photograph mum's going, oh, and they're all laughing. That's joyous. Seeing them come back and say, oh my goodness, I passed my science test. That's joyous. And I think joyous, it's a new word, joyous, there you go, hear the word of the day. I think we need to realise that just making somebody smile brings joy. And actually, even if you didn't do one of those big things during the day, even if you didn't get a holiday in, your child didn't succeed at something, you've just actually had a day which is sitting at the desk and going through the motions, walking past somebody and smiling and seeing them smile back, that gives you one thing for your cup. That's all you need to do.
I love that. And that's what masks I've really struggled with. I don't know about you, but so if I smile, it doesn't change. Whereas some people can smile really beautifully with their eyes, so they've smiled back at you, but I'll actually tell people, I am smiling under here, because I missed that a lot in the early days, and I had to get used to the fact that, when you go walking past someone, I smile at everybody or I'll say hello, and that became quite a barrier for me of shivers. Did they know that I wasn't just glaring at them?
I completely agree, and I think even though the masks are there for a reason, they're to keep us healthy, they're to stop the transmission of the disease that we're actually dealing with, or the virus we're dealing with at the moment. But to me, you're right. I smile, but not the same as your face. Yeah. And maybe part of, I mentioned earlier, some of the lack of being able to plan, the anxiety that a lot of people have, maybe the fact that we haven't been able to see a smiley face actually is building on all of that. And the more that we can, you look at a baby when it first giggles at about 4 or 5 months old, and they have a big huge smile, and everything, the world is their oyster. Everything is wonderful about it, and that makes you smile and that fills you up. We need more of that. We need, we still have to protect ourselves obviously with COVID, but you can do that in your family environment. Now I think we need to do that more. We need clear masks. Masks.
For people who have hearing disabilities, they do have see-through ones so they can still lip read. I tried to find some, but I couldn't find any. Yeah. Anyway, we have some quick fire questions for you.
Great.
So, not that this isn't, I was going to say it always makes me laugh, but I've had great laughs and smiles right through this as well. 3 things that made you smile today.
Oh, well, you made me smile today. There you go. There you go. Number 1. Number 2, I had a big smile on my face because I know that there are 65 students downstairs from varying high schools in Hamilton at the moment doing a leadership academy. So I smile because I know the future is their oyster. So yeah, that's another thing. And finally, my dog licked me this morning. So that's always going to make you smile.
Winner. Favourite books?
Great one. I love it when someone recommends a book. So I remember a number of years ago, somebody recommended me Brene Brown. I loved that. Absolutely great. So favourite book from a leadership perspective was all those sorts of books like that. Other favourite books were when someone said, just read this, it means nothing. Yeah. And I go, because you're so busy with work, having a nothing book. So I remember reading The 7 Sisters and I loved it because it was, don't ask me who they were or what it was about, but it was just reading for the sake of reading. Yeah. So there you go. 3 favourite smells. Okay. So 3 favourite smells. I must say a log fire burning, because to me that is just the coziness and comfort of having people around you with a log fire burning. don't have a log fire myself, so if anyone has one, I'm the sort of strange neighbour that might go towards it and start sniffing. Talcum powder on a baby because of that innocence and that freshness and that newness to life. I think that's absolutely a really cool one. And I suppose the last really cool smell for me, probably coffee in the morning. Keeps you going.
Constant theme in these interviews, coffee always. I tell you what, you must be able to buy a candle that smells like a log fire burning. So
Oh yes, that's
investigate
quite, yeah.
that. There you go. You can just have them strewn throughout your house. What makes you laugh?
What makes me laugh? My daughter telling jokes. She's a beauty for joke telling, and I suppose when she was really young, it would be like, where on earth does that come from? And it would always make you laugh. So she makes me laugh when she tells jokes. You know, I laugh when people just do silly things. Oh, that's me, makes me laugh.
100%. First job?
First job when if we think about when I was still at uni, I got a really cool job. I was so not qualified for this job. I ended up spending my summer holidays between my first and second year of university working for Rainbow Yacht Charters up in Auckland on the marina as their receptionist. No receptionist skills, no sailing skills at all. And it was a really cool job. And it was a floating pontoon at West Haven Marina. And people would book taking these amazing, beautiful yachts out. And I can always remember I'd been there for about a week and they said, oh, can you just move the yacht from one place to another? And I had no idea how to use a tiller, nothing. But it was a great job because at the end of working for them for 3 months, I got to take a yacht out and I knew how to sail. Can't sail now to save myself,
Wow.
but really cool first job. Amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's a lot to be said for being thrown in the deep end, right?
Precisely, yeah.
And people trusting you with a multi-million-dollar boat. How good. Just move it around.
Yeah.
Go to pick-me-up songs that lift your soul.
Oh, okay. Probably got a couple here. If I've got the kids in the car, happy.
Nice.
Yeah, always works with the kids in the car. If I don't have the kids in the car, Dancing Queen. Now, there's a story behind that, a bit of ABBA. As I remember as a teenager, watching my parents and their generation and my older cousins on my mum's side at New Year's dancing away to ABBA going, why? Why? That is so embarrassing. And I can understand why now. So definitely that. And if I was to choose another pick-me-up song, a bit of my youth coming out here, Van Halen's Jump. There you go. So quite radically different, all of them, but they're different pick-me-ups.
Yeah, I'm very eclectic also. I think that's the only way to be with your music. 3 things you're grateful for today.
That I'm here and I'm alive. That it's just stopped raining. Yay! Yes, great. I know. No, I think just being here, being alive, having a healthy family, having still all of my family with me, I think is really important. And grateful that we're not in Ukraine. That I'm really grateful for. I'm grateful that as a country we're very safe down here. And I hope and I really pray that we are setting the future up positively for the next generation and the generation behind. But I do worry at times.
I agree. Empathy in our youth is my worry.
Yeah.
Hobbies.
Well, I went through, like many mothers do, that stage of making cakes and icing them. It's not a hobby anymore, it's more of a pain now.
Yeah.
That's 2 birthdays a year for quite a few years. So I suppose hobbies. I used to tap dance. I don't anymore, but that would have been a hobby I had. Now I would say it's still my running. That's still my hobby, my exercise and all of that, and still my theatre when I can do it. But apart from that, no, that would be about it. That's enough.
Nice. Yeah. We normally would ask here, what does a lazy day look like for you? But resoundingly, most people don't have one. So we've changed it with David Galbraith's inspiration, and we now call it, what does a recovery day look like for you?
Recovery days are important. They really, really are. And I had a recovery day last weekend. And a recovery day for me is, you still got to do a few things in the morning.
Yep.
You still got to organise the general running of the household, which might be the washing or the groceries. But I call it a recovery few hours. And a recovery few hours is the door to the lounge gets closed, some crap goes on TV, normally from Netflix. It's normally a movie that means absolutely nothing. I fall asleep halfway through it and I get up and I go, I've just had 3 hours to myself.
Nice.
And I haven't had to run. I have not that, and I enjoy running, but it's been not the active person that Heather is. It's literally the I've done nothing. And so it's normally crap Netflix. I've no idea what it is. I've never watched a series. It's not normally a series. It's just that movie looks like it'll put me to sleep. That sort of recovery.
Nice. I love that. Qualities you love about yourself?
Oh, that's a challenging one. Honesty. I think honesty is a quality I love about myself. I would say that smiling, the fact that I do smile, and that hopefully brings joy to other people. And I got reminded of that when a colleague that I'd not seen for 25 years said, I was just thinking about you today and your smile. So there you go.
Aww.
So there you go, smile. And another quality about who I am. I'm always willing to give something a go, which often embarrasses my kids. But yeah, I'm that mum that says, I'll do that with you when it comes to doing stupid things. Yeah. But yeah,
Why
I think
not?
willing to give it a go.
Why not? Who is someone that's positively changed your life?
I've had so many. I think it's each little moment. I mean, the leadership coach, great. Has she changed my life? No, she's just enhanced the way I look at life. The person that I mentioned a while ago who I really had respect for the way that they taught, have they changed my life? No, they've enhanced my life. So I think there's no one who individually has changed my life, but there's been a lot of people that have enhanced my life as I've gone along my journey.
I love that. Some public speaking life hacks.
Practice. So it's really interesting. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're so easy. It looks so relaxed when you speak to people," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's because I've done it a lot, but I still get really nervous. My knees still shake. I have always practiced beforehand and recognised or even written what I might talk about. I don't necessarily use it, but it's always there so that the brain is thinking about what you've got to do. I'm not a natural joke teller, so I've never tried to put humour in what I do, but it just comes out because of who you are as a person. So hacks, practice, recognise it does get easier, although it's always going to be difficult. It's never a natural thing. Even the professional speakers always prepare. They know what they're going to talk about. They know how things are going on. And reflect afterwards. So when you get off, go, that was great. That I'd do different next time. And that was great. So use a sandwich approach. Because every single time you speak or do anything in public, you can still do it better.
Yeah.
But you've also got to pat yourself on the shoulder. You actually did it as well. So I think that's really important to create that sandwich approach. Did this really well. Upon reflection, possibly I spoke too fast. I stumbled my words. I didn't think well enough about this. But hey, I actually covered everything I wanted to cover. So that's your pat on the back again. So making that sandwich approach.
Final one. Do you have any family traditions that you do throughout the year?
No. And that's actually why not. So family tradition is, the kids are going through a phase at the moment that it's pancakes every single Saturday morning, but why not? Why shouldn't we have a family tradition? No, we don't. And I'm going to go back and ask them why not.
And this now enhanced your life also.
It does, exactly. I just hope they're not going to come back with something that's going to cost me a lot.
Yeah. Let's go to the US every year in November. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And there's so many amazing things that I've taken away from this that I know other people will as well. And I don't know if you've possibly put all the 2 and 2 together, but what you said when you go running, if I have to go running, I need earphones in to try and distract myself from the fact that I'm in pain and that I can't breathe. But when you spoke about it, you spoke about seeing different people and how they're driving their car. And I remember when I was doing drama at high school, people watching, and I learnt how to sit in garden place and almost tell a narrative of a person I was watching. And it might have been a woman who was eating her lunch, but she was eating, And so it's very similar with your performing. I think you're probably taking those moments and moving those into your performing, and then with your dad doing his PhD, there's so many different links of your life that you're using. It's so cool, so cool. So I recommend everybody to watch this, obviously, and I thank everyone for watching this, and let us know what you've taken away, because Heather is an amazing lady and I would love to share your feedback with her also. We've got some really cool interviews coming up, so make sure you follow us so that you can check those out too. Ka kite.